Trigger warning, religious trauma and talk of suicide. And sorry so long. I, 45F, and my husband, 56M, have been married for 19 years. We have 2 children together who are both teenagers. Throughout our whole marriage, we've struggled being able to problem solve and resolve conflicts. He is so averse to confrontation, he would rather ignore issues than face the possibility that we might argue. When I try to talk to him, he either dismisses my concerns outright or checks out and doesn't respond, saying that he has nothing to say. We get along well otherwise, have fun and laugh together, work together managing the children and home well, and we've moved beyond those conflicts by letting them fade into obscurity. I've tried not to hold grudges over any of them, but it's hard when I know that at least I didn't have to suffer so much if we would talk things through. We've even separated over it before. About a year ago, it became clear that there was no way we could ignore our issues anymore. Our youngest child came out to me as trans after a suicide scare. I wasn't really surprised. I'd known long before she admitted it. She asked me to break it to her father, which I did, and the result was expected. He was not going to accept her. I'll spare the details of his reasoning, but suffice it to say, he claims the Bible says it's wrong, so he can't accept it. He even had a major tantrum where he ran off somewhere on our large area of land with a gun, and had plans to shoot himself because our kid bought a skirt. My stepkids and our older son somehow got word something was going on with him. My son and stepkids spent the next 2 hours finding him and talking him down. I didn't know the extent of what was happening until it was over. Despite it all, I do understand him. He had to live with so much conflict growing up that he practically has a panic attack when he thinks about a confrontation. He's also so indoctrinated that he can't see anything beyond his own biases. But before I could even contemplate how we handle this situation in a state that is unfriendly to trans people, we would have to communicate. And this is something that is impossible for him. We went to couples therapy and unpacked a few things there, namely how he says I'm inferior to him because the Bible says so. While this was incredibly hurtful, I wanted to keep going so we could both help our child through what will be a tough journey. If anything, I assumed he would eventually start to understand that our daughter being trans has absolutely nothing to do with him. Maybe then, he could at least be respectful, supportive, and loving, even if he didn't get the whole trans thing. But then he stopped going. I did have a hard conversation about it with him, letting him know that for us to make it, he at least needs to consider solo therapy to work through his own traumas, which he has not done, so again, I'm not being taken seriously. But during this conversation, I had an epiphany. I could suddenly understand why he was always so contrary and dismissive to me and my ideas. If I had an idea about the house for instance, he'd feel it was his obligation to point out everything wrong with my idea. I feel like he has intentionally tried to push my buttons over the years because he thinks it's funny, and more than that, I think he does it because of his belief that he is superior. During that tough convo, I found myself using strategies I'd learned in college about de-escalating tense situations with adolescents. He was sitting in his chair talking to me because he felt he had to, while his knuckles turned white from gripping the armrests too hard. I realized I was talking to a grown-ass man with the emotional maturity of a teenager. Since then, I can't help but see him this way. I see him as someone incapable of critical thought. He doesn't mistreat our daughter. He more than provides for physical needs, and he says, "I love you" to the kids every night, so I don't feel we're in a situation where I've got to get out now. He's just going to continue ignoring everything and continue acting like we have this perfect life. When it comes to divorce, though, I can't unsee the immaturity now. I can't unhear him talking about the Bible and how I'm not a complete person of my own. His actions towards me over the years make total sense now. When I mentioned splitting up not long ago, his jump reaction was to insinuate that I had a man lined up and was just too eager to get him out of the house. That cut me deep. I've never been anywhere near unfaithful. Even though I've gone through all this, I still feel bad about going behind his back to set up our divorce. I want to be fair and open, but I'm also scared that if I tell him before I've had chance to consult a lawyer and get my business in order, he'll take my money, we have separate accounts but access to each other's accounts, and play dirty however he can so he won't be invested by me, because everything is a competition with him it seems. AITA for wanting to do things discreetly? I could use some unbiased perspective. ETA, his gun was confiscated by my stepson, so he does not have access to it right now. That is all we have of the story right now. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to connect with each other in the comments below. Until next time, be kind, be curious, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, Corner Stories signing off.